Hello everyone, and this is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling on April 19th, 2016. And well, they started off the show with the Knockouts, the women's ladder match for control over the Knockouts division. And this match kind of played the exact way I thought it would, as I thought they would play it. First of all, very short match, nothing really spectacular in the terms of ladder matches here, a couple spots here and there. For everything. The storyline ended up mostly being around Maria and Gail with what happens afterwards as well. Basically, they had Maria in a standoffish position right at the beginning. She sneaks her way out and is kind of just sneaking her way around. And we get chased around by Gail a couple times, eventually getting caught by Gail up at the entrance ramp, but she gets attacked by Rosemary from Decay, and the Decay members take her off. So it just eventually allows for Maria to play the whole cat and mouse game until she can eliminate the last person and get them off the ladder and win the match that way. Nothing spectacular here. Kind of where I thought they would go with it, and probably the right way of going too. Like I said, so far, at least with the Knockouts characters right now, the one that stands out towards anything is Maria to begin with. And then, of course, they played off of the whole Gail Kim getting kidnapped by Decay throughout the entire night. You had a couple of vignettes backstage with, them doing some very, I would say very creepy things, but it's mostly Rosemary doing like these creepy things. And eventually they tie up Gail Kim. And then we'll bring her out to the ring, and it's like, and the whole aspect is like, why did they do it? Was Maria the one behind it or anything? Which they could play that off some other time that she was still behind it, but they come out there to get themselves a tag team title match. Now, granted, you can. I'm shocked the announcers don't necessarily play up this history of why they're calling out Beer Money, why do they have Gail Kim, because Beer Money, not necessarily Beer Money in general, but James Storm with America's Most Wanted, Gail Kim had teamed up with them at during their earlier times in TNA, and I'm shocked they didn't play off of that as like, there's history between Gail Kim and James Storm, and that's why they would actually fully care inside of this area. But Decay comes out there, request a specialty match for the tag team titles, which of course got accepted, and that's how Gail Kim gets out of there. I personally like these segments. It plays to the Decay characters really, really well, and it came off really good here in that sense of everything. So again, I thought these segments were actually really well done, and I've liked what they've done with Decay. They're supposed to come off creepy and unsettling and just awkward to want to watch. So they do a really good job with that. And you have, of course, the match for the next week with the tag titles on the line with Beer Money and Decay. So we'll see how that everything goes in there. It's going to be some kind of no disqualification match, so we'll see. It'll probably be some kind of like Monsters Ball or something like that. They love to do stipulation matches, which you'll see later in the what I'll talk about a little bit later in this review. You had Eric Young and Bram come out, and Eric Young's basically talking and saying he had had enough with TNA. He's going to quit and take his title with him, and he's taking Bram, and he's like, and this is an aspect of where they made Bram stand up for himself and not want to go with Eric Young. This segment, I wish there was a little bit more build-up. You just didn't feel like this was coming between the two of them, in some sense of the word. Like you had seen little spots of like dissension between them. Of course, technically their characters don't like each other to begin with; they're just teaming up with each other. I do like how Eric Young's psychotic nature still falls in there, and Bram came off completely different in this sense. He didn't really come off that crazily intense and everything. And again, like I said, I feel like they should have built this up more because it seemed like they were trying to face turn Bram just for this one match. And it just didn't come off all that well. Though I do like the spot where, Eric Young had taken out Bram, and this is like, and again, playing up to the psychotic nature, it's like, I'm the only one who's allowed to have a beard in wrestling, and his whole God complex thing. It works. It does work for him. And then, of course, he snips off a good chunk of Bram's beard. And we'll see where they go with it. And it does set up for the match for next week where Bram's going up against Bram's going to go up against Eric Young for the King of the Mountain title. So, if you saw what I had made a video earlier of, Eric Young and Bobby Roode were leaving the company already. So this is more likely going to be their last shows in that sense. So we'll see how they play off of everything and how they make all these make these matches work. But you can pretty much assume where they're going to go with everything for the next week. It's just a matter of how do they play them off and how do they tell the stories in these particular matches. So they can still be they can still come out really good in that sense. So we'll see where they go with everything. So you had Trevor Lee, Eddie Edwards, and DJZ in a triple threat for the X Division title. First of all, they don't give them entrances. I don't like that. I really don't like that. It's a championship match. There should be entrances, at least for the champion. And now, on to the match itself. Pretty good match, and they introduced a new guy to Shane Helms' side. And this is what I'm liking about Shane Helms being there. You can say what you want about Shane Helms. He can at least talk decently enough and get these guys over where, like, if you looked at these guys as two people, you would say overly generic. But you put Shane Helms in there, you give him a mouthpiece of some kind, and it puts him over a little bit more. It makes him viable. Like, you could tell they're the workers, he's the talker. He's the one who's supposed to build these guys and get the character and tell you the stories and everything in that sense. And then they can tell the story in the ring itself by having the matches. So I like where they go with going with that. I hope they're going to continue this thing on with Eddie Edwards with going up against Shane Helms' guys with Trevor Lee and the guy's name. I believe his last name's Evans, and the first name is blocked out of my mind for right now. But I'll remember it here in the next couple of weeks. The more we see him. But like I said, I liked it, and the backstage video, the backstage promo with that helped as well. So this leads me into what was not the main event of the night, but one of the main storylines and setting up for the next week for the show, which was Drew Galloway. Drew Galloway was going out there, talking all smack about what happened with him and Bobby Lashley. Well, not smack, but saying he's going to call out Bobby Lashley and everything. So you have Drew still injured and everything. They had, taped up ribs, everything like that. He's having issues even standing when he's in the ring. I like how he's playing off of it and selling the injury to go along with everything. And so he gets interrupted by... After he calls out Bobby Lashley, he gets interrupted by Rockstar Spud. Which eventually leads... Rockstar Spud starts cutting a promo, one talking about the I Quit match later, and also saying, he warned you, and Tyrus comes out, saying that he's going to do his Bound for Gold. Because he won Bound for Gold, he gets a title shot. But obviously, since they were playing off of the fact that Drew Galloway was not cleared this week, that they're setting up for next week with Sacrifice in there. And, not a bad segment here, and not a bad way of setting that up. And you'll see later in the show that Tyrus doesn't even show up during the I Quit match. So they're playing off the aspect that he was preparing himself mentally and not wanting to risk his title shot for the next week, even though Matt Hardy, we'll get into that match a little bit later. So where are we going next? Oh yes, there's a lot of in-ring segments here, not necessarily matches to really talk about all that much. So the next segment was you had an initial backstage segment with not EC3 but Maria and Michael Bennett, and Maria, of course, talking about her victory earlier in the night and how things are going to change in the Knockouts division. But you also had Michael Bennett talking about EC3 and his victory from last week, even though by disqualification and everything like that, that, you know, he's the winner, he won and everything in that aspect. So you have an in-ring promo from Michael Bennett and EC3. Michael Bennett, of course, running down EC3 in every way, shape, or form, in trying to get under his skin in that sense of everything. And of course, EC3 comes out there, and he doesn't cut the typical babyface promos. At least I don't feel like he does. He still comes off as the intense character that he was with, where he was when he was a heel, but he comes off as a more humbled person in that sense. But he doesn't cut off of the intensity that he had during that time frame, which is what I like in that sense. Like, you had to humble the character a little bit to make him a face, but you don't get rid of his intensity, which is what got him to where he was in the terms of people digging the character, and why I was actually digging the character for a while too. I always liked him as a heel, and I don't mind him as a face either. He actually comes off as a decent one. So they set up, so that basically sets them up for a match. No disqualification. I like how he still plays off the fact that, you know, even though he has matches he's lost, he's still never been pinned or submitted for 30 months, and plays that in there because Michael Bennett was trying to get out and saying, oh no, we're done, we're this, we're that. It's like, even though it was by disqualification, I'm done with you, I beat you. But he throws that trump card out there, and of course then Michael Bennett accepts, and he leaves it as, you know, one person has to be pinned, one person has to be submitted, and making it no disqualification, no excuses, everything in that sense. So, not a bad segment overall. I mean, for the most part, this show was not bad. It was a pretty decent show. They've been doing a pretty good job as of late with TNA. Some of the stuff is a little bit out there in some cases. Obviously, you still have some holes, like where is Bobby Lashley gonna go for everything? Because okay, he had this thing with EC3, and now he has this thing with Drew Galloway, but he's not on the show this week. Something tells me it's like, okay, Drew Galloway goes over Tyrus, and then he goes into some kind of program with Bobby Lashley. In some way, shape, or form. At least that's how I feel like they'll go with it, because the last thing that he did do was make his intention clear of wanting to go after the world title. So that's where I think they'll go. We'll see where they actually go with that, with Bobby Lashley's side. So this leads into the main event of the night: Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, I Quit match. Okay, spot fest. I was not a big fan of this match and the way it went. Especially with how they ended the match. You have, now don't get me wrong, you have the insane spot, which honestly probably shouldn't have been done in any way, shape, or form, with Jeff Hardy coming off of like the stairs, crashing through two tables onto Matt Hardy. But it's like the way that they worded it beforehand. You had Jeff saying, this match is not over until he says I quit. And you get that spot, and everyone gets stretchered out. So you don't technically get that resolution in any way, shape, or form. Like, you would assume that he would do something to try to wake up Matt and make him say, I quit. Versus just crashing through that table. And, yes, again, an insane spot, but, like, still leaves that plot hole there of winner of the match. Technically, there's no winner. No one said, I quit. In that sense, so the story does not end there, and I Quit is usually a feud ender. It's not a feud continuer, but it feels like that's where they're going with this. That they're going to go further with this feud, and it did not necessarily need to go any further here. I mean, they've done this in WWE where they did an I Quit match, and it's like, right before, or, you know, same roles as well, Matt as the heel, Jeff as the face, and right before Jeff was about to do something insane, you had Matt say, "I quit, I quit, I quit, I quit." In there, and that was how they went about it. But here, you get the insane spot, don't get me wrong, but where does it lead? It didn't really lead anywhere in the end for that feud. It still leaves the match unfinished. It leaves the feud unfinished, which, again, an I Quit match is supposed to be a feud ender, not a continuation match. So, outside of the main event, for the most part, which in the terms of just a match was fine, was a good match, but telling the story did nothing at all. Though I do like the aspect of I did like the one aspect, and here's a little nugget in there. I like the aspect of, okay, it's a no disqualification style match, so Rockstar Spud is out there within like the first minute. I like that idea. Having the fact that he would come out there within like the first minute of the match to interfere was a good idea. I like that. But overall, as a match, it felt like it should have ended the feud, but yet it just leaves the feud going in that sense of everything. And I mean, we'll see where they go with everything. But it's like, in the end, what was the purpose of the I Quit match? Nothing. Nothing got resolved. Nothing got done in that sense of everything. So we'll see where they go with it. Like I said, for the most part, I enjoyed the show. And the main event was a lot left to be desired in my mind, just because of how they decided to end everything in the actual match. It just, story-wise, did not really do much of anything. Where an I Quit match always feels like it should be, we end the feud here. Whether the good guy wins, whether the bad guy wins. Whether the face wins, whether the heel wins. And you didn't get that here. So, we'll see where they go with everything. And that is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling. I thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.